Good, uh, yeah, let's say evening. Good evening, and welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. So, yesterday was the Super Bowl, or as it's referred to by a lot of media companies, the big game, in air quotes, because they don't have the copyright approval to call it the Super Bowl, because the NFL is very cagey about the right to call it the Super Bowl. It's one of the weirdest things on the planet. It'd be like if, anytime we talked about the World Series, we had to call it something else, or the Stanley Cup final, or any number of other things like that. It's not like the big hockey game or you know, the big baseball game or like if the World Cup was like, oh, the soccer tournament. It's such a weird thing that's very specifically in football. And in the middle of all this pageantry about American patriotism to a borderline nauseating degree, to the point where it's like I'm watching, I'm like, is this a commercial for Raytheon? Oh no, I think that was the golf event my dad was watching beforehand, where they had an ad for Raytheon, where they're like, we're helping the next generation build drones, and it's like, that's horrifyingly dystopian for a weapons manufacturer. Um, so whatever. We have all of that happening, and then it's like we get this thing where it's like, and we're gonna pay homage to the flag. We're gonna do this, and here's the military, and here's Pat Tillman, who they did not tell his story properly. Look up what happened to Pat Tillman when you get a chance if you saw that yesterday, because they did not say what happened to him, and I didn't learn that till after the fact, and I was like, holy fuck, that's a weird thing to use as a recruitment tool. Um, it's just so silly. But in the middle of it, you get a bunch of trailers for new movies, and we're gonna talk about five of them today. It's two TV spots, three trailers, and we're gonna talk about them a little bit. I think that and one of the trailers did debut a few days beforehand, but whatever. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that one too. Of note, there was no trailer for the Disney Plus shows from Marvel or Star Wars for that matter. I think there might have been a TV spot that showcased a little bit of the Mandalorian. I think that might have been part of the Disney 100, spot that they had. But it's weird that there was no, you know, here's what's coming on Disney Plus kind of thing, like they did a few years ago with like Loki and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I think WandaVision was ongoing at the time. But I think that happened. Here's what's coming to Disney Plus kind of thing. I'm surprised they didn't take the opportunity to do that and be like, oh, so here is a look at Loki. Here's a look at Secret Invasion and all this other stuff that's happening. Very surprised that that opportunity wasn't taken. Very surprised that no trailer for the Marvels or no teaser for the Marvels came out, considering that's coming out in July and we have no sense of what's going on with that movie at all. Um, Very surprised there as well. Um, and but yeah, there were a ton of trailers that did drop. Scream 6 they get a new trailer. I think that came out already. I think I saw it in theaters. Last night I went to a movie. There was a new trailer for what was it called? For Creed 3, which looks phenomenal. I can't wait for that in a few weeks. There is a new trailer for what else was there? Um, there was definitely another one. Another 65 got another trailer. That's again in a few weeks. Um, but the big trailers that came out, let's talk about those a little bit. So first off, let's talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This is the second trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. The first gave a little bit of a sense of what we have. This one's giving us a little bit more plot, a little bit more flavor of what we can expect. Visually, it looks astounding. I love everything they're doing in this movie. It looks really cool. The various sets, and this has been a thing with Guardians of the Galaxy for its entire time. The visual language of Guardians of the Galaxy is very unique when it comes to science fiction, and I think that they're doing a great job of continuing that here. Um, the tone looks to be a little bit more serious in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and the Guardians Holiday Special, which was an issue that I had with those is that they were too silly. Um, and I think that to the point where it undercuts emotional moments at times. And I think that it seems like they've course corrected a little bit, where you're going to get serious moments here that are going to be allowed to sit and resonate as serious moments without being undercut by Drax doing something zany. I think that's kind of the right way to go with this. I think that if we leave this movie with no one dying, I will be genuinely shocked. I think Rocket probably dies in this movie. Um, I'm very interested to see where they go. The High Evolutionary seems like he could be a terrifying villain. Um, from how they've set him up through a few lines of dialogue here, where it's like he's like, I just want to make everything better, and he goes, no, he doesn't want to make everything better. He just saw them and wanted to change them. It's like it's kind of a scary kind of way to look at this kind of genetic modification bad guy. I think that could be an interesting approach to go with for this movie. And I also have on here, it's probably gonna be the best Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Right now, for me, I prefer Guardians 2 over Guardians 1. I think this will be number one. Though. I think this will be the best of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And it'll be interesting to see where that actually lays out. Now, the next one, I have thoughts on. I have a lot of thoughts on this next one. Um, this next one is The Flash, which will be coming out in June, I think. Um, this movie is going to be a strange one because I'm not 100% certain how much of this is going to carry over into the new continuity, if any of it does. And I don't think it necessarily has to. I have some notes. I have yet to see anything in this movie that it is loosely based on Flashpoint, and I think that that's something that they're kind of open about is that this is a loose Flashpoint adaptation. Um, I haven't seen anything that makes me think this movie is going to have the emotional core that comes with Flashpoint Paradox. And it is very loosely based on. It's kind of like they're taking the core story of Barry going back in time to save his mother's life, and everything getting fucked up as a result. Like that's the kind of thing that I understand. The problem is, I don't think that this Barry has the emotional maturity to have to make the decision at the end to put everything right by letting his mother die. I think that's the emotional core of the story is that what's good for him is not as important as what's good for the rest of the world. So him, while his life may be shit, giving up the good life for the benefit of the planet is the right thing to do. And I think that that's something in this movie. I don't think that Ezra Miller will be able to, as he's portrayed here, portray that what's it called, that kind of like emotional depth. Nor do I think the movie is really set up to deliver that aspect of it. So I think it should be more focused on spectacle and all of that. That's what this trailer really tells me. Um, the CGI I have a problem with too. I think the CGI doesn't look great, and I don't think this is a Transformers type problem or a an early trailer for other movies problem where it's like, oh, it's the first trailer, the CGI is not going to look great. It's just the first one, and as they do more, as we get closer to release, the CGI will get better. I don't think that's necessarily the case here because this movie has been in development since pre-pandemic. And the fact of the matter is, if it looks this bad now, I don't know how much improvement they can do between now and then. I'm not 100% certain why it looks this way, or why it looks so plasticky and just not real to the point where it's like that fight with Batman. There's this weird kind of thing to it where it's just like it's I guess we'll call it Uncanny Valley, where it just kind of looks off, and I'm not entirely sure how they would fix that in the short amount of time between now and release. I mean, it's 6 months, but it's only 6 months. Um, from what little we saw of her in this trailer, I think Sasha Callie or Cal should be returning as Supergirl for Woman of Tomorrow. That is 100% the tone that I would be looking for that comic, and I think that she kind of nailed it here. I think she has shown herself to be able to do that through this one little trailer. I'll have to see the entire movie to render judgment on that, but I'm not 100% certain. But I think from right now it's looking positive. I like the idea of a world without metahumans that they're kind of setting up here. I just don't. Here's the thing. The big problem with Flashpoint is that he makes the decision to go back in time and save his mother's life. And that creates these widespread ramifications across the entire DC universe. And the question is why? Why does this one action have such wide reaching implications? And it's not just that happened. there was entanglement, and that's not the right word. That was interference from Dr. Manhattan that caused that. And I don't think that's going to be done here for obvious reasons. That's a lot to lay out. That said, I also feel like it's a problem area where it's like, how does hit like, especially considering they're setting it up where it appears the death of his mother was more recent, or was the death of his mother more recent? I can't really tell. The movie's kind of all over the place with this. The trailer's kind of all over the place with this. But it's like, if it's a more recent thing where it's like the death of his mother happens close to the time of Man of Steel, like if that's the case, then like why was that the case? Like, there are a few things. Like, why does him saving his mother's life impact Superman 15 years earlier? There are a lot of questions that I have about this. Um, but none of them are going to be answered. I feel like that's going to be an issue with the movie. And the other thing is, it's a small thing in the trailer, but it doesn't bode well for the movie. If we're watching a Flash movie, and it's a movie about a guy who can run so fast he can turn back time, and he can go back in time to the night his mother dies by running. At no point in a trailer should I see the Flash with a gun pulled on him, and that be portrayed as a moment where that is a serious risk to his well-being. That should not be in the trailer. It shows a kind of fundamental misunderstanding of the character. Um, and I think the other thing I get from the show is that we get there's a little bit of tonal dissonance that we kind of had with the Love and Thunder second trailer. Hopefully that's a little tightened up in the movie. It'll depend on the runtime, but it'll be interesting to see where it all plays out within the confines of this movie. I'm a little more on for this movie. There are a few things that I hope they do bring in, and I think I've said them before. Number one, I would like for the movie to end with the diner scene from season 3 of The Flash. And for those of you who don't know, season 3 of The Flash opens with Flashpoint. Barry goes back in time, saves his mother's life. Everything kind of gets fucked up, and it's kind of more centralized to things around Barry. Whereas, like, because he captures the Reverse Flash, he never has to kidnap. He never has to take on Wells' persona, and then all the things Wells does throughout the time leading up to it to get the team together doesn't happen properly. Um, so it's like you can kind of see the ripple effect of where things are going and why things aren't happening the way they are. So when he does put things back, everything's kind of different. So he tries to go back in time again to fix it, and he gets pulled out of the time stream by Jay Garrick, who looks like his father. And they go to this diner in the '90s, and they camp out in this diner, and they're drinking, and they're having coffee and stuff. So Jay is talking to Barry about why you shouldn't time travel to change things. And he picks up this cup, and he's like, this cup is the timeline. And he vibrates the cup, and it cracks, and a piece comes out. And he goes, when you do that, you will cause an issue. You can try to fix it, and he puts it back in, but you'll never be able to fix it perfectly. And I would like for Grant, and I think that'd be the best way to end him on as the Flash, is for him to pass this knowledge off to movie Barry. Is for him to pass that on and do that scene with him. The other thing I would like that the show also did is in season 1 of the show, the probably the best episode of the show. It's definitely in the top 5. Because there are a few others that came later that were pretty good. The Runaway Dinosaur is great. The excluding crossover episodes that are pretty good. Like Runaway Dinosaur is a great episode. The episode with what's it called? With where any episode where they go into the Speed Force is always a fun one. The 100th anniversary, the 100th episode is great. The season 1 finale is phenomenal because it's about Barry being given the option to do Flashpoint and ultimately rejecting it, and him having this conversation with he goes back in time, and before he goes back in time, Eobard says to him, "You're going to be able to see everything as you go into the time stream, not just your past, but your present and future as well." And as he goes into this time stream, we see a bunch of stuff that is going to happen. So you see like, a flash of, no pun intended, like Caitlyn as Killer Frost. You see it, which doesn't come in until the next two seasons to begin with. You see a flash of Barry in jail, like which happened in season 4. You see a flash of the Flash Museum, which is way down the timeline that we see in season 5, and it's things like that that are like, this is really cool. I would like to see this evolve more. And again, I don't know how big of a role Kiersey Clemens is going to have in this movie because we don't see her in the trailer at all. And that's my other kind of issue with this, is that this is a Flash movie, yet it seems very Batman and Superman oriented, in so much as Zod is the bad guy again. And we have, this idea that, Zod's the bad guy, and we have to team up with two Batmen to fight Zod, and it's like, just let me do a Flash movie where it's the Flash. Like, just, the Flash has such a robust rogues gallery and a side like cast of characters. Why the fuck does this need to be a Batman adjacent movie and all of that? I don't need any of this. I don't need any of that. Just move it along. Now the final trailer is the one that came out on Friday, Fast X, or Fast 10. It is the next Fast and the Furious movie. I think it comes out in May. It looks absolutely fucking ridiculous every step of the way in this trailer, but in the best possible way. I started using ridiculous not as a pejorative, as more of just a, you know, like, this movie knows what it is, and it has that self awareness to the point where I'm looking forward to what they do with that self awareness, and how, how much they can play in that world. Like, look, this is a movie franchise where the last time we saw these characters, two of them went to space in a car, and we were kind of like, all right, moving on. That tracks. Like, this one, we have, I would assume, a weather machine from what it looks like. We have something that's controlling and creating these vast windstorms, or some kind of nuke. I think that this is a part one of a two-part movie. Maybe the sequel is called Furious X, and that will wrap up the story. Like, that movie happens, and we get this. This is going to end up on a down note, so maybe something happens. I think the most likely outcome is it's not a Infinity War type ending where you have, half the universe is dead. I think it ends like a soap opera where you end up with, we don't know who's alive or dead at the end of this one. I think it ends up with, something happens, and it could be everyone's dead. It could be no one's dead. It could be, any number of combinations. It could be. Um, but I think that very clearly they want to start out the movie not knowing who's alive and who's dead. That way we have that going into the next one. Um, the the helicopter action sequence is by far the thing in this trailer that, it's the most ridiculous thing in the trailer, because this is like the scene in Fast Saga where um they attach themselves to that part of the rope bridge and like careen around the cliff in midair, like that kind of thing, where it looks really ridiculous, but it's gonna be awesome. And just the action sequences look so insane. Looks like they're getting back into racing. I'm all for this. This is a movie that I'm very much looking forward to for the summer now after seeing this trailer. Now, the next two were both TV spots, and they don't really provide too much information in additional. Um, First, we'll do Dial of Destiny, which is the new Indiana Jones movie. Um, it doesn't look like this movie, this trailer adds a ton to it. It's kind of a slight expansion, where it's like, oh, so he has a history with who Mads Mikkelsen's playing. He used to be a Nazi. He's basically playing Oppenheimer, but Indiana Jones version of Oppenheimer, where he's working on the rocket program for the Americans after World War II. And it's a cool idea. I appreciate all of this. I think this could work out well. I think this trailer is really just to showcase the how far the de-aging CGI has come, and to really make us question what the fuck was going on in The Mandalorian when Luke looked so shitty in season 2, and in Book of Boba Fett. I think that was the question I had after that. And the other one's a similar thing. Transformers Rise of the Beasts had a trailer or a TV spot, and it's kind of the same thing. We're here to show you the CGI has gotten better, because that was a big complaint with it last time. We're showing you the CGI is better. We're showing you how much cooler this all looks. And get ready for all of that, because this is going to be a fun ride for us when we get there. So I'm all for all of this. Like I'm here to see all these things. And Rise of the Beast is probably one I'm least looking forward to because fucking Pete Davidson's in it, and I don't know why he bothers me so much, but he just does. So we'll see how that plays out. But it's going to be an interesting ride as we go through these. Um, but yeah, we have a ton of movies coming out this year. This is probably the most stacked year for movies in a long time because it's not like 2019 stacked, where it was just Disney bringing the heat on everything, and then a bunch of other bullshit happening with other companies that wasn't as big name. This is every studio is bringing their A game, and I want to see what's coming from all of them. Because like 2019 was probably the biggest year on record for movies, but you had Avatar, you had Avengers Endgame, you had Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker. You had Frozen 2. You had Toy Story 4. You had The Lion King in live action. You had Aladdin that year too. Um, was Detective Pikachu that year? Was Detective Pikachu? Oh, John Wick was that year. We have a John Wick movie coming out. I'm surprised we didn't see that. Um, Lionsgate probably didn't want to shell out the money for that. And you know what else I'm surprised didn't have a trailer during halftime because I could see them trying to synergize the crossover audience that you get with the halftime show. Because the point of the halftime show is to bring in an audience that is maybe not 100% committed to watching football, but will tune in for a little bit to watch that. Um, which is why you end up with like Lady Gaga's performing the halftime show. You end up with, in this case, we had Rihanna performing the halftime show. I'm surprised they didn't have one for, or a teaser even, for the Battle of Songbirds and Snakes. I think that was a big one that I'm surprised wasn't there. Um, I'm trying to think what else is this year that didn't get showcased. I think everything else is kind of accounted for between. I think it's just the Marvels and it's Hunger Games or Dune Part Two. That's another one that I'm surprised wasn't there. Um, you know where I could see Dune Part Two debuting a trailer? Academy Awards. I would not be surprised if they debuted a Dune Part Two trailer during the Academy Awards because Dune cleaned up at the Oscars 2 years ago. So I could see them debuting the trailer at the Oscars this time to be like, guess what, motherfuckers? We have Timothy Chalamet back. We are going to clean up next year. Um, I could see that playing out there. But I think that's enough discussion of trailers for one day. So if you enjoy this, go ahead and subscribe, especially if you're on iTunes or any other platform, because we do these weekly shows and then special editions with news breaks. Um, so we're gonna have more stuff as it happens. Tomorrow we have an episode going up about Ant Man and the Wasp that Josie and I recorded. Next week we have Akira. The week after that we have Creed 2. So until then, have a great rest of your week.